So let's go on with our test case. So like I said, the first test is to perform a credential vulnerability scan against a sample asset. So the first thing we need to do is to come to sites. We want to create a site. So without creating a site, you cannot run a scan. So the first thing is to create a site. So we're going to create a site. I also put some list of steps that can help us achieve some of these things. Yeah. Okay. So this talks about the system requirement. So the minimum is majorly used for the POC, then recommended, especially for production environment. So we recommend that these system requirements are followed, so that it doesn't affect the performance of the Rapid7 server. So on the Linux environment, if we want to, so we can install Rapid7 via either on the Linux server or on the Windows server. So it has both Linux installer and also Windows installer. So this is just a high level of how it is installed, right, via on a Linux server. After downloading the setup file, we change mode, then we run the setup, right? So the next one would be so these are the various features that we've talked about: the create, search, right, the calendar, help, notification items. So these are features that you see on the home page. Then also the features that we just talked about, what they are used for, right? So guys, and this is how the scanning process is done. It's carried out a discovery scan, to check on active IP address, then a port scan to check for open ports, service fingerprinting to check for services running on those ports, then OS to also check what OS is installed on those on the servers, on the assets that were discovered. Also now start checking for doing vulnerability checks, right? Then policy checks like the CIS that we talked about in terms of to in line with compliance requirements, right? So the InsightVM containers, like I said, consist of sites, asset groups, and tags, right? So let's check back on our server. So this is this, guys. I think I was talking about. So okay, yeah. So this is what I was talking about: creating scheduled scan within a site. So this is just a process that we are just going to follow, right? We will create a scan, right? Then, sites, then include the assets that we want to scan. So guys, I want to say test site, we can call this a test site, right? Importance, we can choose what is the we can assign the importance level. If it's very high or normal, I would like to put it as normal, right? Then so this counts site for my lab network. So guys, that's the first step. Then filling this is optional. You can fill out your organization details, right? You can also specify users that should have access to the scan. Sorry, to the site. Yeah, so it's not just about you creating a site. You can also restrict access to the site. So this is where you can specify users. So let's say we integrate the Rapid7 with our Active Directory, then we're able to import user or create users locally. We can specify users that should have access, right, to the site, right? So the next part we're going to go through is the assets. So on the asset page, what we do here is to two things: include assets and also to exclude. So I'm not going to exclude any assets, right? I want to include. So 192.168.8 so /24. So you can see I want to include all my IP range on my network. I'm not excluding any. So if you have certain critical servers that should not be scanned due to performance issue or impact, then we can exclude that. We can also choose, if we have a list of IP address on the file, we can decide to upload them here, right? Yeah. So that's also one thing that we can do. Yeah. So just a minute, I want to confirm I have connectivity access to the Active Directory. Sorry. 192.168.8.1. Okay. So I have access also to us. Just trying to check. True. Okay. Switchable. Okay. Okay. So guys, yeah, after including, so if we want to include an asset group, like I said, we can create a dynamic or we can create a static asset group. So this is where we can include the name of the asset group after we've created it. So if we want to scan, let's say by asset group, we can include the name of the asset group here, right? So for now, we are scanning based on IP address because this is the first scan. All we know is the range of IP address. Right? So next, we'll move on to authentication. We want to add, so there are different ways, there are different types of authentication. We have what we call shared authentication or site-based authentication or site-level authentication. So site-based authentication is only unique to that particular site. So we can create a shared based authentication, right? So I think we should, okay, let's create the site-based authentication, then later we'll go and create the shared based authentication. So this is what we do. We can come here to say, domain. This would be like a domain authentication, right? Then we can see create. Once we create it, click on it. Then we see we have access, then move on. This is general, move on to. So basically, you can see the different services that we can use to authenticate, across. So the common ones are the SMB, Microsoft Windows / Samba, right? Then also for Linux would be SSH, we're using SSH. So let's use these for Windows. Then the domain, don't forget our domain is, you can get that for the ipconfig / or can see the domain. So this is my domain, right? So I'll put in my domain to .local. Then so we can put in the username. So I'll like to put in my domain admin. And do this like this. Then we can put in our password too. Right, so a good thing, okay, sorry, my password does not match. Okay, so a very good thing that we can do is to also test. So good way to test, put in the IP address of the Active Directory. And then you can click here to test. You can see it's successful, then we can save it. You can also test against certain port. Since it's SMB, you can test against, let's say, 445. You get, see, you can also test against 139. These are SMB port that are commonly used to scan, I think, sorry, 139. All right, so good way, guys, good way. So we'll save these. So this is site level authentication. Then save it. Oh, sorry. Should I click save, continue? Okay, so this is where we are, guys. Then, okay. So we'll go on to the template. So guys, like I said, we can create custom templates, to specify based on maybe business requirements. We can also use inbuilt templates. So these are some of the inbuilt templates that we have in Rapid7 InsightVM. So you can see I created, prior before now, I've created a custom template. See, you can see this is the policy template that I created. So we can decide to use, so for example, we want to run a scan for PCI DSS, compliance. We can choose the PCI DSS template. So, but a very good recommendation is to use the full audit. We can decide to just use a full audit, so, but if we're scanning like web interface, then we can do a full audit that will include do web spider. So this is Rapid7 technology for scanning, web interfaces, so, but what I want to do is to run a full audit without web interface, because I'm basically scanning internal assets, right? So asset discovery uses ICMP, TCP, UDP, so in case ICMP is blocked, and these are the checks that will be done. So this is fine. So also, this is where you select. We don't need to go to the administration tab to that. Of course, we can do it there to create a scan template, but we can also create a scan template from here, right? You can go on to just click scan template and create a scan template, then select that scan template, right? But for this test, we're just going to select, then we move to the next, which is engine, local scan engine. So we have three types. You have the local scan engine, which is inbuilt with a security console, majorly used for POC. Then we have distributed scan engine. Then we have what we call Rapid7 hosted scan engine. So majorly used to scan external remote assets or external, to carry out external vulnerability assessment. So you want to carry out an external vulnerability assessment, to depict how an attacker will scan your network or your web server or website, from an external perspective, not because what we are doing now is an internal vulnerability scan. So if you want to carry out an external, you can use the Rapid7 hosted scan engine, which is hosted by Rapid7. It will carry out a scan and share the results with the Insight platform that is connected to our InsightVM console on-prem, right? So that is it. So we are using the local scan engine. Then, okay, so like I said, once you click that create template, you will go through this series of configuration. So you can types of check that you want to do: asset discovery, vulnerability, web spidering, or policy. So if you want to just create a policy template, you can just you only select the policy, then deselect the others. But if you want to do a full roundup check, you can select all these various checks that we have here. Specify your name, description, decide if you want to carry out enhanced login scan, maximum assets scan simultaneously per scanner engine. So basically this is where you can configure certain general information. Then you go on to step by step to decide to indicate what certain configuration for your scan template. If you want to send ICMP ping or ARP address resolution protocol ping, you want to send TCP packet to the port or Udp packet, you can decide, to select these guys, right? So scroll down to see other information that are necessary, collect more assets from. So find other assets, you want to do this, right? Collect with information, fingerprints, the TCP IP packet, right? So also you can go on service discovery. So we have this, so what method do you want to use for service discovery? Still scan, or a full connect scan, right? Well-known ports, that's to all accessible ports on your network, or well-known ports, then additional ports that you want to include, ports that you want to exclude during the scanning process. Then we have the Udp scanning, right? So if you are running a Udp scan, well-known port, additional port, like port 53 for DNS, ports that you want to exclude, MAP, service detection scan, if you want to include that too. Then, so we have discovery performance, maximum retries, attempts, to assess a particular asset, right? Maximum retries. These are, so pretty much can leave by default. Vulnerability checks, you can see vulnerability checks. So for example, you want to create this custom scan that will only check for WannaCry. All you need to do is try and gather the CVEs that are assigned to WannaCry or that relates to WannaCry. Then we can select those CVEs here. So you can see perform unsafe checks, include potential vulnerability checks, right? So selected checks, let's say by category. Let's scroll down to see. Let's see. So we can see by category. So if you want to do, let's say, a vulnerability check on zip and 7-zip or Active Directory, you can see alone, or you want to do for specific categories like softwares, you can run. So you see Apache server. So basically, these are just custom checks that you want to streamline, to run a scan on specific on specific services running on your network, right? So, we have about 281 of them. So you can go through to see specific what's it called, services that you like to run a scan on. So that is under add category. You can add, can remove category, add checks. You can see vulnerability check type that you want to carry out. Let's say you want to carry out checks on default account, local account, version. For example, want to carry out accounts on what's it called, window registry. So select vulnerability check type that should be carried out, right? So add checks. So this is where I'm talking about. So we can, like I said, we can add check based on specific CVEs. For example, if this CVE is related to WannaCry or is related to Bytea ransomware, or Soniduki ransomware, or the recent ones that we have, so we can get the CVEs. For example, principal vulnerability, nightmare, HIV nightmare. These are vulnerability that are recently discovered. We could put them here. Get those CVEs from window vulnerability site, exploits DB and the likes. Get those vulnerability and search. For example, search for these, search for them, or those vulnerability, then you just add them and save them. So the custom scan will run against your asset to check for if those assets are defaulting or they don't have those patch available, right? So that is how to run a custom scan. So let's go back. Really digressing a lot. So, but this is very important for us to understand the full feature of Rapid7 InsightVM. Then next thing we're going to do, we've already selected our local scan. Then, so if you want to create an alert to say you want to be notified when if the scan was completed or the scan stopped, right? You can choose to create an alert to say, okay, test alert. So maximum alert saying, say 5. So scan event when it gets started, when it stops, or if it failed, or if it's paused on when it's resumed, right? So severity, any vulnerability event. So severity events, right? So if you have, we can integrate our Rapid7 inside solution with our SMTP server, so that we can get emails based on the alerts, notifications. So we can decide to maybe to indicate the email address that will be indicated as the source email. Then put in the SMTP relay server, then we save, right? So that is how to create an alert. So basically, we need to first integrate, right, our Rapid7 InsightVM with the SMTP relay server to get an alert, right? Let's see. So I still need an SMTP relay server. So let me just cancel this. So it's not compulsory. Then a very good one will be to run to see we can create a schedule, right? We can create a schedule to say we want this scan to be run maybe once a week, once every week for in a year, or right. So we can decide to the start time we want it to start. Let's say 12. 12 noon, right? Decide the put in your time zone. Then don't forget we are running a full audit without web spider. Then scan engine we're using is local scan engine, right? So frequency, one time every day, every Saturday, so these are just templates that we have. So we could choose to do it weekly. You can see others, we choose others here weekly, every first week. So we can see the duration we want it to run. If we want it to run for days, if we want it to run for like a day, we scan to run a day, or we want it to run, let's say, for 2 hours, right? We start the scan from the, so we have reaches duration. So continues the scan where it's previously stopped. We start the scan from the beginning, So we can say restart the scan from the beginning. We can save it. Okay, so that is how we create schedule. So apart from creating the schedule, we can also create what we call a blackout. So a blackout is it's like a window where we don't want the scan to run, right? So we can say since the scan is started from 12, we can say around, let's say, by 5, which is, or by 4. Okay, so I think it's between 1 to 12. So let's say by 4 p.m. we don't want this scan to run, right? So one time blackout, or we can decide, okay, every Saturday by 4. So let's say every day by 4, we don't want this scan to run. Maybe that's a period of that's a peak period for us, you get. So we can say can decide to put this every week, right? And create a blackout, something like this. So you can click it. So by 4 p.m., we don't want this to run. And save it. So that's our blackout period, right? So you can see it's been selected, see our schedule. See, right about now, just save and scan. So save and scan. So these guys, this is how to create a site and run the scan. Thank you.